To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. I didn't say that. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that over 150 years ago, but it's never been more relevant than today. Let's be honest, your need for approval is killing you. It's squashing your dreams, stunting your growth, and sucking the joy out of your life. And let me tell you something, friend, you are doing life wrong. But the good news is there is a simpler way out. In today's episode of the Unshakable People podcast, we're going to tackle the root of your people-pleasing problem and give you a step-by-step plan to break free. By the end, you'll have the tools to start living for yourself, not for others. My name is Katie Kaspari, I'm your host, and I'm here to guide you through this transformative journey. Stay tuned till the end, and let's do this together. And by the way, please do not hesitate to like, share, and subscribe this episode should you feel like this anytime during the episode. Thank you. Picture this. You are at a party, laughing at jokes you don't even find funny. Your eyes dart around the room, seeking validation from other people. Does that sound familiar? This behavior isn't just harmless social interaction, as one might think. It's a symptom of a much deeper issue that's gradually depleting your energy and well-being. Constantly seeking validation from other people might seem like an effective way to navigate social situations, but it exacts a significant toll. This persistent need for acceptance isn't merely exhausting, it's actually altering your brain's structure and function. And let's examine what's really occurring when you're constantly seeking others' approval. I mean, on the physical level. Your body remains in a perpetual state of stress. You're constantly on high alert, wondering if people like you, if you've said the right thing, if you've done the right thing, if you're fitting in. And this chronic stress isn't just making you feel uncomfortable. It's physically changing your brain. Studies indicate that this type of ongoing stress can lead to concerning alterations in your brain. It affects areas responsible for managing emotions and making decisions. In essence, the more you seek approval, the more challenging it becomes to regulate your feelings and make sound judgments. Moreover, this constant pursuit of validation can actually reduce the size of crucial brain regions. Can you believe that? Your need for likes and acceptance is physically changing your brain's structure. That's bloody scary. This transformation isn't beneficial at all. It's a sign that your brain is adapting to a harmful pattern of behavior. You might be thinking, but I need people to like me. And I understand that, I get it. We are inherently social creatures. However, this relentless pursuit of approval creates a toxic cycle. It transforms your relationships into competition for limited validation. And ultimately, no one benefits from this dynamic. Nobody wins. The authors of the Courage to be Disliked book articulate this really well, in my opinion. They argue that when we prioritize gaining approval, we often develop negative emotions like fear and self-hatred. And these feelings, they don't just impact our mood. They can contribute to serious mental health issues such as anxiety and depression, which are becoming more and more spread in our world today. But there is hope. An alternative way of living exists. Imagine a life where you're not constantly preoccupied with other people's opinions, where you make decisions based on your values, not on what will garner the most approval, where your relationships are actually deep and authentic, not founded on mutual validation. And this might seem unattainable right now, but I assure you, it is possible. And the first step towards freedom is recognizing the trap you are in. And once you understand how this need for acceptance affects your life, your relationships, your connections, and even your brain on the physical level, you can begin to break free. So here's your first key takeaway for today. Awareness is power. Now that you understand the hidden cost of constantly seeking validation, you can start to make different choices. You can begin to live for yourself, not for others' approval. But if this behavior is so detrimental, why do we engage in it? And that's a good question. Why are we all so dependent on this validation addiction? And that's what we're going to explore next. Prepare to uncover the psychological roots of our need for approval and how to liberate ourselves from this cycle. We're about to explore the depth of human psychology and our need for approval. And this isn't just a bad habit. It's a complex web of evolutionary instincts, cultural norms, and personal insecurities. Are you ready to confront the uncomfortable truth about why we're all addicted to validation? Stay tuned. Our evolutionary past plays a crucial role in this addiction. Being social creatures, our ancestors' survival depended directly on group acceptance. Those who were outcasts faced grim fates with less access to resources, protection, and potential mates. Our brains evolved to prioritize social acceptance as a deeply ingrained survival mechanism. It's an instinct, if you like. And while this need for approval served us well in small, tight-knit communities, it's become somewhat of a liability in our modern, hyper-connected world. Today, we're not just seeking approval from our immediate tribe. We're constantly bombarded with opportunities for validation from countless sources: social media, work, even strangers on the street. And this addiction to recognition is a fundamental aspect of human psychology. We often set goals in our interpersonal relationships that revolve around being perceived positively by others. It's as if we are constantly performing on the stage, hoping for applause. Yet, while we are desperately seeking approval, there is another part of us that yearns for authenticity. We want to be true to ourselves on the one hand, to be able to express our genuine thoughts and feelings. We find ourselves caught in this internal tug of war between our needs for acceptance and our desire for self-expression. And this conflict isn't just psychological, it's cultural too, in many ways. Approval-seeking behaviors can vary significantly across different societies. In collectivist cultures, for example, group harmony and approval are often emphasized more than individualistic cultures, which tend to prioritize personal achievement and self-expression. Your cultural background can significantly influence how deeply this approval addiction affects you. Understanding the underlying motivations for your approval-seeking behavior is the first step towards change. When we recognize that our emotions and happiness are shaped by the goals we set, particularly in our interpersonal relationships, we can start to make different choices. And this understanding empowers us to change, not by completely eliminating our need for social connections, but by finding a balance and recognizing when our pursuit of approval is holding us back from living authentically. Now that we understand why we are all so hooked on approval, let's look at some people who've managed to break free from this addiction. And these are people who dared to be disliked, who chose authenticity over approval. And their stories might just inspire you to do the same. What, in your opinion, do Steve Jobs and Frida Kahlo have in common? They dared to be disliked and changed the world in the process. Throughout history, individuals who stood out from the crowd often faced significant backlash for their unconventional ideas. But it's this willingness to be disliked that allowed them to leave an indelible mark on the world. Consider Steve Jobs, whose management style at Apple was often described as abrasive and demanding. He faced opposition from employees and board members alike. Jobs' insistence on perfection and innovation led to numerous conflicts, but he remained steadfast in his vision. I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance, he once said. And this unwavering commitment, despite the criticism, ultimately transformed the tech industry as we know it today. Then there is Frida Kahlo, the Mexican artist known for her bold, unapologetic self-expression. Kahlo often faced criticism for her exploration of personal and political themes in her work. In a time when women were expected to be demure and conventional, Kahlo painted herself with brutal honesty. I paint myself because I'm so often alone, and because I am the subject I know best, she famously said. And this authenticity, which initially drew criticism, has since made her an icon of feminism and individuality. These stories raise an intriguing question. How can we apply these lessons to our own lives? We might not be revolutionizing an industry or challenging artistic norms, but we all face situations where staying true to ourselves means risking disapproval. And the impact of those people's willingness to be disliked is clear. Jobs' persistence led to groundbreaking innovations that we use daily. Today, Kahlo's honesty in her art has inspired generations to embrace their unique perspectives. And you might think, what if these figures had prioritized being liked over being true to their convictions? We might be living in a very different world today. True greatness often requires ruffling some feathers. And that's the hard truth. It's about having the courage to stand by your convictions, even when it's uncomfortable or unpopular. But this brings us to a crucial question. How do we actually start living for ourselves? It's one thing to admire historical figures who dared to be disliked, but it's completely another to apply this principle in your own daily life. You might think courage is something you're born with, but psychological studies suggest it's more like a muscle that can be trained and strengthened. And let's explore now how you can develop your own courage, even if you think you don't have an ounce of bravery in your body. The truth is that courage isn't a fixed trait, but it's rather a skill that can be developed through practice and exposure to challenging situations. And this aligns with the idea that we can train our courage muscle, much like we build physical fitness. Consider Jia Zhang's 100 Days of Rejection experiment. Zhang intentionally sought out rejection in various scenarios to desensitize himself to the fear of rejection. What he discovered was really surprising. Rejection often wasn't as painful as he anticipated, and many people were actually willing to help when he approached them with his request. Zhang's experiment demonstrates that facing small rejections can build resilience and courage over time. It's about learning to act despite fear, not becoming immune to it. Each time we face a small challenge, we are essentially doing a rep for our courage muscle, making it stronger for the next time. And the key here is to start small. Set achievable goals that involve stepping out of your comfort zone to some extent. And this could be as simple as initiating conversations with strangers or expressing your opinions in group settings. These might seem trivial, but they are powerful exercises for building courage. And the more you do them, the more confident you become. And another effective technique is keeping a rejection journal. Document your experiences of facing rejection, reflecting on your feelings and the outcomes. This practice helps normalize the experience of rejection and reduces its power over you. It doesn't seem that scary anymore. This approach is accessible to everyone. You don't need any special equipment or training. You just need to be willing to feel uncomfortable. As you practice, you'll likely find that your capacity for courage grows. Situations that once seemed terrifying might become merely challenging, and challenges that once seemed impossible might start to feel achievable. By taking small steps to face your fears, you are developing a mindset that will serve you in all areas of life. But what about the fear of losing relationships? It's one thing to risk rejection from strangers, but what about the people closest to us? And that's a valid concern, and it's what we're going to explore next. How do we balance authenticity with the desire to maintain our important relationships? Sometimes we must risk losing relationships just to have better ones. And this concept challenges our conventional understanding of maintaining connections through compromise and conflict avoidance. But what if these very practices are usually harming our relationships? The fear of losing connections by being authentic is a significant concern to many people. We worry that relieving our true selves might lead to rejection or disappointment. And this fear traps us in a cycle of people-pleasing and inauthenticity, which paradoxically harms our relationships, doesn't benefit them. When we constantly mold ourselves to fit others' expectations, we prevent them from knowing and loving our true selves, creating a barrier to genuine connection. Kishimi and Koga argue that prioritizing approval from others often leads to viewing life as a competition, hindering the formation of genuine connection. We become so focused on winning approval that we simply forget to actually connect. In relationships, quality trumps quantity. The depth and authenticity of your connections matter more than the number of superficial interactions. Research shows that authenticity in relationships leads to deeper, more fulfilling bonds. By being true to ourselves, we naturally attract like-minded people who appreciate us for who we really are. Consider a real-life scenario. You've always accepted every social invitation, even when you'd prefer to stay home. And one day, you decide to be honest and decline, explaining your need for downtime. And despite initial worries about damaging the relationship, your friend might appreciate your honesty, opening the door to a more authentic connection between you two. True connection requires courage and vulnerability, and that's the hard truth. It's about having the bravery to show up as your authentic self, even when it's uncomfortable. It involves risking short-term disapproval for the sake of long-term, genuine connections. And as we move forward in this episode, let's examine our lives and identify areas where we might be sacrificing authenticity for approval. Are you prepared for an honesty check? Let's explore this further. You've decided to be more authentic, but how much of your life is truly yours? An authenticity audit is a deep dive into your daily life, examining the choices you make and the motivations behind them. This process uncovers the subtle ways you might be sacrificing your true self for the sake of approval. It can be uncomfortable, but it's necessary for genuine personal growth. Consider your typical day, from the moment you wake up to when you go to bed. Each decision you make reveals something about how authentically you are living. Think about the major decisions in your life: your career, your relationships, your hobbies. How many of these align with your true desires? And how many are influenced by societal expectations or the need for approval? It's not uncommon to find that we've made life-altering choices based on what others deem successful or acceptable, rather than what truly fulfills us. And we are all different. To identify approval-seeking behaviors, reflect on your daily decisions and ask yourself if they align with your true desires. Pay attention to situations where you feel uncomfortable or resentful. These emotions often signal that you are not being true to yourself. Examine your relationships and your goals. Are you constantly compromising your values or interests to maintain harmony? Are your goals genuinely yours, or are they shaped by what others expect of you? As you go through this process, you might be surprised by what you discover. Perhaps you'll find that you've been staying in a job you dislike just to meet the societal expectations of success. Or maybe you'll realize that some of your friendships are based more on obligation than genuine connection. And these revelations can be unsettling, but they are crucial for personal growth. And remember, the goal isn't to completely eliminate the influence of other people on your life. We are social creatures after all, and some level of compromise is necessary for harmonious relationships. The aim here is to become aware of when you are sacrificing too much of yourself for the sake of approval. Self-awareness is the first step to change. By recognizing the extent of your approval-seeking behaviors and understanding their impact on your happiness, you are already on the path to a more authentic life. And this awareness gives you the power to make different choices, to live more in alignment with your true self. And now that we've taken stock of where we stand, I think it's time to look at the road ahead. How do we move from awareness to action? How do we start making choices that truly reflect our authentic selves? Growth happens outside our comfort zone for a fascinating neurological reason. When we face new challenges or step into unfamiliar territory, our brains naturally respond by forming new neural connections. And this process, known as neuroplasticity, is the brain's way of adapting to new situations. Discomfort is a crucial ingredient in personal growth. You might think that avoiding discomfort is natural, and you'd be right. Our brains are wired to seek comfort and avoid potential threats. It's a natural thing. It's an evolutionary trait that has helped us survive. But in our modern world, this instinct can hold us back from reaching our full potential. And the key here is to recognize that the discomfort we feel when facing new challenges isn't a signal to retreat. It's an invitation to grow. The science behind this is compelling. When we experience discomfort, our brains release neurotropic factors, proteins that support the survival of existing neurons and encourage the growth of new ones. That uncomfortable feeling you get when trying something new is literally helping your brain grow and adapt. Successful people often credit their growth to embracing discomfort. Take Dear Jung's 100 Days of Rejection experiment, for instance. Jung deliberately sought out situations where he'd likely be rejected, asking strangers for bizarre favors and making unusual requests at businesses. And the result? He built remarkable resilience and confidence, demonstrating how leaning into discomfort can lead to significant personal development. So how can we use discomfort as a compass for growth? Start by paying attention to those situations that make you feel slightly uneasy. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting, trying a new hobby, or maybe it's having a difficult conversation with a friend. Instead of avoiding these situations, try viewing them as opportunities for growth. Ask yourself, what could I learn from this experience? Psychological strategies can help us reframe our relationship with discomfort. Instead of seeing it as a threat, try viewing it as a necessary part of the growth process. This shift in perspective allows us to embrace challenges rather than avoid them. It's about fostering a mindset that sees discomfort as a signal for growth rather than a reason to retreat. Discomfort is often a sign that you are actually on the right track. When you feel that queasy feeling in your stomach, it might just be your brain telling you that you're about to learn something new. Embracing this discomfort rather than shying away from it can lead to remarkable personal growth and a more fulfilling life. But what about when the stakes feel too high? What about these situations? When the discomfort isn't just a fleeting feeling, but a potential risk to our careers, our relationships, our personal lives. And in the next section of this episode, we'll explore situations where authenticity seems too risky, and we will find ways how to navigate these high-stake scenarios. Being yourself can feel like a high-stakes gamble in certain situations. There are times when authenticity carries real risk. In some workplaces, expressing your true opinions could potentially jeopardize your career prospects. In certain social circles, revealing your genuine beliefs might lead to ostracism. Even in close relationships, being completely honest about your feelings or desires could potentially end the connection. And these are real dilemmas that people face every single day. So how do we balance authenticity with practicality? It's not a simple equation, but there are strategies we can employ. One approach is to implement authenticity gradually. You might start by setting small, achievable goals that align with your true self. And this allows you to build confidence and resilience over time without immediately risking everything and going all in. It's about finding those pockets of authenticity within the constraints of your current situation. Another crucial strategy is self-reflection. Take the time to really understand your values and your priorities. What aspects of your authenticity are non-negotiable? And where are you willing to compromise and slightly move? Where are you willing to be flexible? This clarity can help you make more informed decisions about when and how to express your true self. Consider the case of Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. When he took over the company, he shifted Microsoft's culture towards empathy and inclusivity, values core to his authentic self. And this revitalized the company and led to unprecedented growth. Or Malala Yousafzai, for example, who advocated for girls' education in Pakistan despite death threats. Her courage amplified her message globally, leading to significant changes in educational policies around the globe. To assess when it's the right time for full authenticity, consider the potential long-term gains versus the short-term risks. Sometimes what feels like a huge risk in the moment, here and now, can lead to tremendous growth and opportunities in the future. And here is your mini payoff. Living authentically isn't always easy or safe. But the potential for a more fulfilling life, deeper relationship, and the opportunity to make a real impact often outweigh the risks. As we consider authenticity in high-stakes situations, we see that balancing true self-expression with practical considerations is a complex but rewarding journey. Living for yourself isn't selfish. It's a powerful way to contribute to the world. When you're true to yourself, you bring unique gifts and perspectives, contributing authentically without the filters of people-pleasing or fear. It's not about abandoning your needs, but recognizing that your authentic self is your greatest offering to this world. The world needs you, not another people pleaser, but the genuine you. Your authentic self has the power to inspire, the power to challenge and change things in ways that a carefully curated facade never could. It's about having the courage to stand by your convictions, even when it's uncomfortable. So ask yourself, will you dare to be disliked? It's not an easy path, but it leads to a life of purpose, fulfillment, and genuine connection. well, the choice is yours. I would like to leave you with this thought for the time being, and really hope you found value in everything we have discussed today. If so, please kindly spread the word by liking and sharing this episode, and also subscribing to my channel and this podcast to let other people know that this podcast exists. Maybe there is someone out there who needs to hear this information today. Thank you. I would also like to invite you to connect with me with any suggestions or thoughts you might have in regards to this episode. Feel free to drop down the comment below and share your opinion. Your voice matters. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and hope to see you in my other episodes. Bye for now.